What's up, Sixers Nation? Happy Thursday. Today we got a video for you, a little Sixers check-in here. We'll be discussing a few different things. All-Star Game, third fan returns just got announced today. We'll go through that, who's on it, who's not on it. We'll go through Sixers bright spots. We'll talk about Justin Edwards, who's been one of those. We'll get into that later on here, and then we'll finish up talking about their upcoming schedule. As always, hit that like and subscribe button below. We are giving away $25 to a random sub for every 100 subs. Just gave one away last night for that game. Shout out to Jack for winning that. And if you do sub, we also do have a private Instagram chat for subs only. And message us about that if you want to be added. But let's head right into this here. We're going to start with just checking in on their last few games here, which have certainly not been the best. They have lost 4 straight games here, starting with last Friday, home against New Orleans, losing to a really bad New Orleans team in the Pelicans, 123-115. Decent games from Paul George and Maxey in this. Maxey, high man of the game with 30 points. PG did have 11 rebounds, which is not something you really want to see, but with the injuries and Drummond and Embiid and, the other side playing out of position, you're going to see stuff like that. Maxey, 12 assists in this game here, which is, a bright spot there. But again, losing at home to the Pelicans, who have been one of the worst teams in the NBA this year, dealing with their own injuries themselves. No excuses there. Then they traveled to Orlando to play the Magic. No Franz Wagner in that game. Paolo has returned. So Paolo did play in this game, and they did lose. Again, Paul George again leading the team in rebounds with 10. And then they returned home, played a back-to-back against OKC and New York. Absolutely blown out by OKC. This was like a process Sixers game, basically. Half the Sixers lineup was out in this one. Edwards, 25-point shot at the Justin Edwards. We'll talk about him later on there. Had a great game, played a lot of good minutes, and actually played some rotational minutes last night against New York. That game went to overtime. They fought well. No Embiid in any of these games here, and unfortunately ended up losing that by 6 in overtime. Maxey had a good game with 33. Oubre actually leads the team in this game with 10 rebounds, and Maxey with 6 assists here. So currently sitting at 15-24. Again, have lost 4 straight. So
great,
9 games below 500 there. It's certainly they're on the uphill battle from here on out. So,
only positive there is really besides the OKC game, which they did cut it to 4, and it was a process game at one point. But yes, they ended up getting blown out. They have been relatively in a lot of these games. That is the one silver lining, if you will. But once again, I mean, you got to get wins at this point in the season. We are down to you must win, and they're not executing, and it matters the score. I mean, they talked about it last night, even on the post-game show after the loss to the Knicks. Is this a moral victory? It's like Mark Jackson said, we're so past moral victories at this point. You lost, and that's it. What matters is the record at this point.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's not hockey, right, where you can get a point for an overtime loss. Took an OT, great. But that doesn't help you in the standings. Maybe a moral victory if you want to call it that, but doesn't show up in the win column.
Nope.
And at the end of the day, you take the L there. But let's go over to some all-star voting. Just came back with the third fan votes here. Got front court and guards here. And kind of the new development here is you're not going to see Paul George on this list. He started off on the first fan returns. He was 9th on this list for front court. He has since fallen off this list. Embiid's also gone from 8 to 9, so he's fallen down. And then Maxey actually has gone up 1 on this list. He was at 7 in the first returns. Now he's at 6. So he has the highest chance of any of the Sixers making the All-Star game. But I wouldn't really say myself that any of these guys deserve it. Maxey's had a tough season, and there's a lot of great guards in the East. LaMelo Ball's had a good season. Donovan Mitchell's had a good season. I think Lillard's a little too high. I think his name's kind of standing out there. I think Brunson and Trae Young and even a guy like Tyler Hero who's sitting at 10, I think should be a lot higher on this list. And then for front court, Embiid also kind of hanging on with his name there. Has only played in dozen or so 13 games this season. So he certainly does not deserve it here, which is certainly something that going into the season, you think, okay, they have 3 good shots between Paul George and Embiid and Maxey. Very hard to get 3 guys in it from the same team, but you'd think at least one guy gets it. Right now, it's not looking like any of the Sixers are going to make the All-Star game.
No, I mean, if they all played, it'd be a different story. Embiid shouldn't be on the list. I love Joel Embiid. I think we all have made that very clear, especially we're big Embiid supporters and fans, but He should not be on the list. He simply just hasn't played. If he played more than one game a year, it'd be awesome, and he'd be on the list. He'd be probably top 1 or 2, right behind either Giannis or Tatum, depending on the season. There, Maxi's had just a down year, and once again, it's a product of missing Embiid most likely. But still, Tyrese Maxey, he deserves to be on the list because he is one of the top 10 guards in the East. He just is. But at the same time, I mean, Kay Cunningham's playing better basketball. It is interesting.
He's having a really good year too.
It is interesting to see no Paul George because this is the fan vote. And Paul George, although he's having a down year and has missed some time, when I think of the fan vote, it's almost sometimes a popularity contest. And Paul George is a hell of a name. He just is.
Hell of a name.
He is.
He's got 2 first names.
He's got 2 first names. So it's a hell of a name. And also, I mean, he's just a pretty popular guy. He's been in the league for a long time. He's been on a podcast, been in the league for a long time. The list goes on and on. So
I mean, it is embarrassing to have Jared Allen ahead of you.
It's not a good look.
Does Jared Allen have a podcast?
No. He doesn't have an afro though. And the
afro's got style.
Does that ad drip? Does it not? I don't know.
Yeah, but no. I mean, really, at the end of the day, none of these guys really deserve it. Not that having all stars is a life thing, but it's like, hey, it's indicative of the season so far. The Sixers have not shown up to play. They are again 9 games below 500, and their stats and their play shows for it. And that's going to show in this fan voting here. So we'll certainly give more updates as that gets closer to it. I'd be very surprised if any of these guys make it. Again, this is just a small contribution to who actually makes the All-Star game. It's not just it doesn't just come down to the fans there.
Yeah.
But we'll certainly get into that more and have other updates too as we find out information on the All-Star game. Switching here, talk about some bright spots.
It's hard to find nowadays.
Not a lot of them. We're gonna head over here to Twitter. Shout out to Harrison Grimm here. And he says, quote, as of right now, I think there's only 3 silver linings to the season, with only 2 of them being guaranteed to last beyond this year. I got a few bullets here. First one being Jared McCain is real. He'll be really good for a long time. Second one, I think Justin Edwards is an NBA player. And thirdly, Gershon Yabusele. Don't need to elaborate much more on that one there. And we'll talk about dive more into Justin Edwards. That's actually kind of the next topic we want to get into. But yes, not a lot of positives coming from this season. Unfortunate that Jared McCain is out for the season, but it does seem like he won't miss a beat coming back, and will certainly be part of their future unless they do decide to trade him, considering their situation and their win now mentality. Yabusele, the other name in their guy that they picked up as a vet minimum, was not in the league. They brought him back, as he was playing internationally, and has been stellar for them. We put up a post the other day on our Instagram talking about him. Is it someone that you want to bring back, give a contract to? Because again, it's just a 1-year deal, vet minimum there, or is that someone you want to trade? Considering he's one of the only Sixers who has some value here outside of the top 3 guys, which are not going to trade the big 3 here. And we'll certainly do another video going through trade deadline pieces, all that kind of stuff here. But I think this kind of hits it well. Harrison here, not a lot, but it's like in grim times like this, where the Sixers are sitting. It's
grim times. Whoa, is that a pun? Harrison Grimm?
I did not do that on purpose.
Okay.
But in bad times like this, where the Sixers are sitting right now, you got to sometimes think of the positives. There are a few right here that they can certainly build off of and hope that they can add to this list.
Yeah, it's a process type tweet right there. It really is. I mean, that's not a winning basketball. We're not a winning basketball organization right now. We just aren't. And to retweet it, it sucks because yes, we're talking about 2 rookies and a minimum guy as our bright spots of the year, which that's how things aren't going well. You don't have to look at the record to know that, hey, things are not happening, on a positive note in Philadelphia right now. But yeah, McCain's been really, really good. I think we all know that. We've talked about him all year long, ever since he got injured, or up to the injury, excuse me. And then Edwards, which we'll get into in just a second. He's been phenomenal. And then Yabusele, there's not much to say. For the minimum, he's played like a guy that deserves 10 to 15 million a year.
That's probably what his market would be. I mean, the Sixers may get a little bit of a discount because they gave him that shot, right? Yabusele would not be in the situation he is right now. The Sixers didn't give him that chance.
Yeah.
But considering NBA contracts, yes, he could fall certainly in that range or more, considering who wants someone who's desperate enough to pay him that kind of money. So we'll see. Time will tell what the Sixers do with him, considering they've already passed the first tax apron and they don't have unlimited money in basketball. So, but let's dive deeper into Justin Edwards. And the question we got here has Justin Edwards played himself into a regular rotational role? Let's take a look here at some of his stats. Kind of led off with the minutes per game because some of these may not jump out at you, 6.6 point per game, but he's only played 16 minutes per game and only a select few. He's played in 10 games this season, so 160 minutes total, which, some movies are even longer than that. So, take this again with a small sample size here and with a grain of salt, but he's averaging 6.6 points per game, shooting at a very good, efficient field goal percentage at 53.1. 36.7 3-point percentage, which he's one of the few guys actually shooting pretty well from three. As we showed earlier, he had a great game Tuesday night against OKC where he had really big minutes, and he kind of parlayed that into getting rotational minutes in last night's game against the New York Knicks. Still some injuries with the Sixers. A guy like KJ Martin who's out, and Caleb Martin will certainly dive into or kind of push into some of the minutes that Justin Edwards should get. I personally think that he should. The Sixers are looking for a spark plug right now. Off the bench. He's a young guy. He's got a lot of potential. And we know what a lot of these guys can bring to the table. Some of these veterans that we have, we already know. And I think Justin Edwards has kind of proven in these last, few games in the limited minutes that he's gotten that he deserves at least a chance to kind of play some big minutes for the Sixers as they look to, make a playoff run.
Yeah, I mean, with injuries, he is certainly a rotational player. The question is, come full health when this team, knock on wood, hopefully eventually gets healthy where they have the big three playing on a nightly basis. Who knows if we'll get there. And, the rotational guys back like a Drummond, which not saying they play the same position, but that does bump everyone down. Drummond's going to take up minutes regardless. You're going to get back. We're talking about Caleb Martin, who's been a really good piece. One of the guys that I'm high on. He has not played recently. He's been out for the past few. KJ Martin is eventually going to come back. Those are guys that are technically ahead of him in the rotation. We'll see if he continues to shoot well, and we'll show a clip here in just a second on his shooting. If he continues to shoot well, which in the past two,
I think, if I have it right, that five.
Yeah, here we go again. Here's the Edwards confidence right here. His confidence pulling the three. No hesitation there.
Very smooth release.
And keep in mind, this is the fourth quarter. These are big shots here. This is not garbage time.
3 minutes left.
Once a minute. That's a big shot. Top of the key is not an easy one, especially in rhythm right there. It was a great pass, but Edwards just not afraid to shoot it. I mean, you look for that, especially from a rookie in a big game, in a primetime game on ESPN. These are moments that you like to kind of savor and see what they can make of it. So Edwards stepping up here once again. Yeah, I mean, he showed that throughout the game. He showed that in the OKC game as well. Just the confidence to shoot. He can also drive the ball. He's not an excellent driver, but he's certainly decent enough for a rookie. And like Harrison said in his tweet, he's an NBA player, right? He's proved himself to be a NBA, I think, fringe rotational player. We'll see how he develops, but he's given minutes because we're so thin. He's the next man up, and he's showing exactly what he can bring to the table, which you love to see.
Yeah, he was a top prospect coming out of high school, and went undrafted in the NBA just because of injuries and his lackluster play in college. That didn't fit his bill for being a top high school prospect. But only 60 guys get drafted in the NBA. There's a lot of really good talent that doesn't get drafted, and he'll certainly, play some valuable minutes in the G League and get his time there and get more minutes there. But I do think in some of these games here, especially with some of the injuries that the Sixers have, or even if they are full strength, that he does deserve, 10 minutes. I'm not asking for him to get 30 minutes tonight or anything like that. But he did finish in last night's game. He didn't start last night's game against the Knicks. Eric Gordon did start over him, but Edwards finished the game with the starters. And that tells a lot about, what Nick Nurse and the coaching staff thinks of him and what could potentially be, a spot in the rotation for the future. Speaking of the future, we're going to finish up this video talking about the Sixers' upcoming schedule, which is pretty ugly, if you ask me here. They talked about it last night on ESPN. Going into last night's game, 14 of the 15 upcoming games for the Sixers are against teams that are above 500. The only team that of these next 15 games is a team that's under 500 is the Chicago Bulls. That's also an away game, which doesn't make it much easier. So upcoming schedule here, you got a back-to-back Saturday, Sunday. So they're traveling to Indiana to face the Pacers on Saturday. So they do have 2 days off here, today and tomorrow. And then they have a back-to-back Sunday against Milwaukee there. So, Embiid's already going to miss one of those games. He is going to be reevaluated tomorrow to see kind of his outlook there. And hopefully he plays in one of these 2 games. Need it. Then they travel off to Denver to play the Nuggets after an off day on Monday. That's another game that Embiid usually doesn't play in just because of the altitude. So you're already looking at, even if Embiid looks good, he's healthy, he's probably only playing in, one of these next 3 games here. And then they have more, other 2 days off there,
Yeah.
and then they return home against Cleveland, really good team, best record in the East, and then at Chicago, and then they have a really long home stretch, but against some tough teams: L.A., Sacramento, Denver, again, Boston, Dallas, Miami, and even Detroit. They're a tough team. They're above 500 right now. Like we said earlier, Cade Cunningham's having a great season. They got some good rotational pieces there too.
Mm-hmm.
And then at Milwaukee, and then it kind of slows down a little bit here as you look. Toronto is a tanking team basically. Brooklyn's tanking. Play Brooklyn again here. Chicago. You mix in Boston and New York, certainly gets a little bit tough here, but got a gauntlet of a schedule.
Tough stretch, man.
Coming up. If they could be somewhat even close to 500, if they could be 500, I'd be very, very surprised. This is something where I think they can only pick up a few victories here and there over these next, 10, 15 games.
Yeah, it's a brutal schedule. It makes it interesting to watch because it's quality basketball. You're not playing the Hornets every night. No offense to the Hornets, even though they're not terrible. They're interesting. But it's funny how the Denver game is on. Do we have it? Is it broadcasted enough? I know we have 3 stations here for the
True
I
TV.
mean, my God, Max, TNT. I
True
mean,
TV, you can watch like Impractical Jokers.
I mean, it's everywhere. But
TNT, Max.
yeah, this schedule simply comes down to, and it always will, how many games will Embiid play? Like we said, we know he's not going to play the back-to-backs, right? The Denver one is not a back-to-back, but he's notoriously not played in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Does that change this year because we suck and we need him? Who knows?
Probably.
And that'd be an awesome matchup to see him versus Jokic.
Yeah,
He always
tickets start as low as $7.
He always eats Jokic's lunch. That would be awesome to see that. And it's the 2 best centers in the league, but who knows? The at Cleveland one's tough. You got Jared Allen, Mr. Number 10 on the front court list in All-Star voting. So, there's a lot of big names and a lot of tough matchups. And, you look up and down this schedule, and I don't see the way the Sixers have been playing a lot of wins here. I mean, you just compare it to the games that they've had in their past 4. I mean, there was 2 winnable games in Orlando.
They haven't been able to pick up some of the easier wins that they've had so far. I'm not saying that they can't pick it up here and perform better. But it's one of those things where I got to see it to believe it.
And the one silver lining is, besides the Thunder game, which I'm not even going to count that because they were literally playing with like 8 dudes and half of them were G League players. They have been in these games relatively. The Knicks one was kind of they took the lead, or the Knicks had the lead throughout the game. It started off kind of close.
I mean, the
and then
Magic
the 4th
game was really not that close.
We turned it up.
OKC was never really
right, but they've made it close towards the end. There's been a couple like the Magic one came down to the end. They pulled away in the last few minutes there. So they had their stretches. They kind of go competitive, and then Nick Nurse forgets to coach the team. So there's a lot of issues here. The number one thing is, we need Joel Embiid back. I know I've said it, and it's a broken record at this point, but it's true. Like, there's no way they win any of these games, honestly, or even stay competitive in a lot of these without Joel Embiid. It's gonna get ugly.
And Joel too. Not only does it play full, he plays well, 4 quarters, but especially in the 4th quarter, they need their closer.
They don't have a closer.
They don't have a closer right now. Maxey has not stepped up. Paul George has not stepped up, and after that, it's a big drop off in terms of who can step up there. They've faded in so many 4th quarters and lost leads and lost games because of that. So,
and the question is like, who is your, so let's assume Embiid's out. Who's your 3rd guy? We know it's Maxey, PG, whatever order you want to go there. And then who's 3? Like maybe Kelly, maybe Yabu.
I mean, Kelly's been tough. He's had some good games, but mostly bad ones. Even in like the OKC game, right? He was like the best player on the court. Thought him step up, and he shot really poorly. Edwards was the one that stepped up in that game. Caleb Martin's had some good games. Celtics one first comes to mind there. It's kind of been rotational after that. 1 or 2 guys maybe step up there.
And I guess
you're not looking for Drummond to drop a bunch of points. And Yabusele is great, but he's not a guy that's going to get you 25.
Right. And to contradict myself, I guess you don't need 4 closers, right? Assuming we're full health. Like, that's not how the game is. The difference is teams knock down their threes, which we saw last night with the Knicks. They shot a really good percentage in the first half. They kind of cooled off in the second, which made the game close, and we started to come back. But it seems like we have guys that are, wide open for 3, and we're just bricks. And that's a lot of the times that's big swings there, 6-point swings, 6-point swings, so on and so forth. And it just adds up, and you look at yourself and you're down 15 just like that. So I don't know, man. It's a tough stretch coming up here for the Sixers, but hopefully we can hang in there and get some wins.
If you're a Birds fan, big game this weekend for the Birds. So maybe you got something to cling on to, considering actually both teams play on Sunday. So go Birds there. But thank you everyone for watching in here. Appreciate all the support. Just hit 300 subs the other day. Not somewhere we ever thought we'd ever reach. So really happy about that. Appreciate all of you. Hope everyone has a good weekend. And thank you for tuning into this video. As always, go Sixers, baby.
Go Sixers.
Cheers.